It's newspaper. I gotta know he's okay.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Toylanta, a full panel room on Sunday. That's obviously fitting for our friends from 4Horsemen Studios, and what the gentleman said is the most ambitious project ever made. That's my first question. Do we agree that that is the most ambitious project you've taken on as a studio?
CB?
No, the first ones were more
The very
ambitious
beginning.
because it was just the three of us.
Oh.
But now we have a whole amazing crew working and helping us out. And yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm sure all of us have seen Beyithirr down there. I will say, if you haven't backed it, I personally would like you to back it because I need those soft goods right there.
Yeah.
To me, on that
Those are
finger. So that is my vested interest in the game is soft goods. But I think one of the things that is interesting to me is how does the process of saying, okay, we're going to tackle something that is within the wheelhouse of Mythic Legions in the world and fantasy and IP, but so much larger, and I'm sure from a product design, you know, we've heard at Legions Con and stuff, some of the challenges around it. What says, yeah, let's do this? Because I think we all know that this is not a thing that's going to be everybody's getting a mansion up here based off the dragon. This is a passion project. So what? Maybe. Maybe. But what's kind of the mindset that makes you say, let's do it, let's tackle this?
Well, I think since the Mythic Legions line came out over 10 years ago, this was on the to-do list. You know, a dragon, iconic fantasy creature. Cornboy was asked very, very early on in those interviews, will you ever do a dragon? It almost became a myth unto itself about this 3-foot dragon that Cornboy used to talk about during interviews. So really, it was about finding the right spot to do it. And as we got up to that 10-year anniversary, the 25th anniversary of 4Horsemen Studios, everything was just aligning along with our own, kind of business, being able to tackle a project like this, to get it out there, to make it a reality. All along, the desire was there, the timing had to be there. And even with everything that we put into it, there were significant surprises along the way when we got like the first set of costs back and we realized, we knew it was going to be a complex project, but when we realized how much we had bitten off, it definitely required us to have to rethink how we were going to put it out there and land on the crowdfunding pre-order that's going on right now.
Active as a week left. So if any of the videos that are going up, hopefully they'll go up in the next little while. When it was revealed at Legions Con, which a lot of folks were here, a lot of folks didn't get to see that. That was the G-Con reveal is always a very fun thing. This was especially unique because we're all sitting there and for years, folks have had the Where's the Dragon shirt. Natalie has the Where's the Dragon shirt. But in this case, we've gone through all these very incredible set of announcements, all sorts of different things. And then it was it Press Your Luck? No, what's the game where you pull back the thing and you see if you want, if it's a zonk or a new car? Price is Right, baby, yeah. And it's revealed.
Let's make a deal.
Oh, let's make a deal. Yes, and it's revealed and the dragon comes wheeled out, and that reaction, which Brad worked really hard on a documentary where you get that moment at the end, which being in the room gave me a lot of goosebumps. To decide to reveal it there and all of that, I remember, knowing that there was something different going on, but you didn't know exactly what. Talk about that, like just that process. We're going to reveal it at this thing, we're going to have the excitement, making the video. I'd love to hear about that stuff.
Go ahead. I'll answer every question that you let me, so somebody else has to jump in.
You're the best to answer that. Why would we do it at Legions Con? Of course we have to do it at Legions Con. There'd be no other place to announce
It's the year of the dragon.
That's our big moment. That's the moment we go out, we come to shows like this, we love meeting the fan base, we love making new fans, but really there's something special about that annual Legions Con event. So it was very, very clear that that was going to be the time and the place to reveal the dragon. How we revealed it, Joe, we went back and forth on a bunch of different ideas. Most of them, Joe coming back to us saying like, no, that's, there's no way.
I'm a little protective.
There's no way that we can lift it up from the ground. How's it real?
Like a wrestler entrance
I didn't
coming
really
up.
think we could do
Hydraulics.
that, but I had to ask if that was possible.
We were gonna roll it through the hallway, like out the back room through the hallway, and people would be going nuts outside the room.
Like a
and
bride down the aisle, they wanted to.
We wanted to bring it down, but then we figured everyone was gonna be jumping into the aisle. They want to take pictures and video. We'd have to say, okay, thanks. Like, come on, let's move aside, and that was just the best option.
But how do you know, even at one point we said, let's put it in the room and cover it with like a sheet. And it was like, everyone's gonna know what that is.
Eye of Sauron would have been on that the whole time. I don't know what you're showing over there. That, open that up.
That's
I
cool.
don't care about that line, that. That's what it would have been.
But finally coming up with that idea of putting the banners behind us, which the happy byproduct was it created a much nicer backdrop for us than we had at some previous G-Cons. But then moving all of that and having everything come forward. It's funny, I have heard a number of people say that the people in the crowd knew something was happening, because all of a sudden the entire membership of the studio that wasn't at the front table
Nothing to see here.
all filtered into the room
Yeah.
and made their way around the edges. So everyone's like, oh, something's going down.
Yeah. And then I think COCB that said something about it. And you see we have all of our illustrious members of the studio, and it was, oh, here it comes. And then also the thing that was neat was when all of the attention was on that reveal, outside, the full diorama was being set up, and you could see that ripple move through the crowd. And I was actually in the back, you know, I don't want to block people. And Robo was with me, he was like, hey, let's go up there, let's go up there. We went outside, more of the team was setting it up, and everyone was looking at you. I had to go back and watch the G-Con video, because I didn't see any of it talking about it, because I was looking at the one that was outside. That was cool too, so you could immediately exit the room, and it was there. Like you were setting up the different diorama parts, and I think that was cool, because the whole weekend, that thing just lived in the hallway.
Two of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
two
'cause
of
we
them.
had,
Yeah, we did it too.
yeah, the one that's down, yeah, I know, it's not a big enough challenge, let's double it up. The one that's downstairs, that's the main look of Beyithirr, but because Eric really wanted to do these alternate parts, the expanded wings, the open mouth with the fire breath, we had two of the Beyithirr dragons on display. One of them that was the standard, and then another one that had those add-on parts that was in an even larger display case. So that's the one that was being built.
Yeah.
One of them was in the room with us that we had rolled out. The other one was in the hallway.
That was cool to see. So I know, George, you and Chris went to China last year leading up to that. I'm assuming now, after the fact, wouldn't be a spoiler, that you were, at least some things of this was being discussed or looked at. Some does, or even working with the factories. What is that like on something as large as this compared to, a more standard thing? Is
I
it?
mean, when we go to see these molds, it's gonna be insane. Like, we showed, like, maybe 2 weeks ago on 4 o'clock, we showed a video of some of just a little piece of it, of some of the molds that we had there. That there's a mold that we're standing next to, and it's like waist high, and it's just a regular action figure part. Like, I don't know, the mold for this thing is going to be insane. Like, to move these molds, like, there was a mold that's probably about this tall, this big. It's a regular steel tool, and I tried to knock it over, and I couldn't move. Like, I could not knock the mold over. They're so heavy. It's all drug around on, like, with engine hoists and things. And like, it's so when we go to see that, I'm excited to see what this thing's going to be. I mean,
It's one piece.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not separate pieces that they can break across multiple tools.
Right.
This is
So,
one.
I mean, it's gonna be, you take that and you put all the extra steel around it, and the fact, like, these guys working on this, it's gonna be insane. Like, when they're refining the molds, they have to keep taking them apart and working it and putting it back together and checking it and taking it apart, and like, to do that on this piece, those guys they're gonna be insane. It's
Sorry,
a lot,
not sorry.
Yeah, it's a lot of
That's
work.
what it takes.
One of the things, like, when we got the pricing back from the factory, the scale of this, how much surface area has to be painted certainly impacted that. but one of the price factors was that their team has to wear protective hand coverings to put it together, cause it's got so many spikes and everything on it. There's so many sharp parts that they have to actually protect their hands and put it together very carefully and slowly for that. So I mean, every aspect of this is just ratcheted up.
Wow, we need the how it's made of the Dragon, which.
We have some, Brad is currently editing some of the, we shot a bunch of stuff when Chris and I were there. All the processes from, you know, making the tooling to the painting, to spray masks, to like production for the packaging. We shot all that stuff when we were there. We haven't been able to put it all out because not all of the figures that we were shooting were released at the time. So now all of that stuff has been out and been released, so now Brad is editing the videos.
Brad, if you'd like an extra set of proofreading, you can.
Shortly,
Make it private, send it
we
my
will be
way.
putting that out, yeah. We will be putting all that footage out, when Brad is done. It's a little bit more to go with Chris doing some voiceovers and a little bit more tightening up, but we will get that out and you'll be able to see the whole process, like from start to finish.
Some really fascinating insights. It's absolute eye candy if you've ever watched how it's made. You know, whatever it is that's on the production lines, it's drool worthy. And of course now it'll be drool worthy, but you get to look at some of the things that are, you know, centered in our world. So yeah, prepare yourselves for that. We'll have a couple of shorts that sort of walk you through those processes.
Just so you get an idea, there was a point where we visited a part of the factory where the guys from the factory that were taking us around were shooting on their phones because they don't get to see it. Like they were shooting the video too because they're like, we never get to see this stuff. So it was cool. Like we saw some stuff and we got to shoot some stuff that most people don't get to see.
You talk about this, the spikes. Episode of How It's Made that always stuck out to me was the reason cashews are so expensive is like everything around the thing you eat is deadly poisonous. So they have to have all this protective gear to get, and that's why whole cashews specifically are the most expensive because a machine can't do it. It has to be done by hand.
Wow.
So, but like machine sorting can get bits and pieces that are low cost, and that's, think about that, and I think that's one of the newer elements of the studio in general, is a lot of these things that I'm assuming Brad's working on. The Dragon video is great, and more of these kind of lore videos with the character being revealed. I think that's been a really cool part, and that if you haven't seen what was the formal name of the video, The Rise?
Birth of the Dragon.
Yeah, is a beautiful piece. And I would encourage, I like that there's some new, it's a little new, the kind of videography stuff.
That's
I
great.
certainly appreciate
That's
Brad.
great.
I
Brad
think
joining the
it's-
team and really bringing it up to that.
Yeah.
In a manner of speaking, that's really part one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few things afoot in like the moving image, sound, storytelling, and you know, as I come into the studio, I think for me, I stand a little outside of the circle, and I think that kind of it actually benefits how I can look at things. So I really have fresh eyes. I'm like a kid in the candy store all the time. But as I did come to really get to know the inner workings, I just said, look, we've got stories that need to be told beyond the toys, because you know I always tell people, like, behind the camera, I don't really need to tell anybody about toys. Like, that stuff you guys know, and the toys speak for themselves. When I take a picture or make a video of it, it's easy for me because they're just beautiful and awesome at every level. But you know, what really invigorated me was just seeing how tight-knit the team is, how like material the collaboration is from start to finish at every level. Everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a contribution, and yeah, I really look forward to getting into like the inner workings of the studio. So we're gonna see some kind of behind the scenes, some process stuff that actually just takes place in our house, and we wanna share some of that with you guys as well. So yeah, lots of things moving in that world.
It's super exciting. I know in that world, when I was on with Jeremy 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, on the Wednesday night show, and people can believe what they want to believe. Before we got started, he said, I don't know if the Dragon's going to be at Toylanta. That was the real answer. I don't know if it's going to be there. Now, I had a goal to try to convince otherwise, but Joe was in the comments saying, I'm going to do my best to get it there, and I think, Joe, you got it here. Right? You know, and so that even something like that, like the process of having this thing here, whatever it is, 950 miles away, is interesting. Like, it's not just like just ship it down or carry it down. So Joe, what's it like? I mean, you've been carrying this thing to places and handling it so often.
I feel like I'm like the babysitter or the butler to the dragon in a manner of speaking. You know, I make sure it's cleaned up and it's got all of its parts and it's looking good wherever we bring it. But
To be
yeah.
fair, if we touch it, he yells at us, so.
Well,
It's
I mean, you've gotten better at it, so I'm a little more comfortable with other hands on it.
Oh, I won't touch it.
But yeah, I mean, just hearing how excited everybody was to see this, like the best thing I could do is, yes, I'm with the studio, but I'm still very much a fan, like the rest of you, and I'm very lucky to be able to see this kind of stuff all the time. So I want to be able to share it with everybody else and help be a conduit as best I can to this entire situation. So yeah, when I hear like everybody wants to see it, it doesn't matter if it's funded or not. It's pretty special. This is something I've wanted since I was a kid, and to be even this involved is pretty nice.
He's
So-
downplaying it a little bit. I left at 5:30 on Monday, and I came in on Tuesday morning, and there was a crate made. He made a crate to bring this dragon in. After hours, on his own time, stayed to make sure that we had a way to bring it down here safely.
Well, luckily enough, we had a scene shop upstairs, and I just had to text the owner and be like, "Hey, can I use some scrap wood?" He goes, "You do what you got to do, man," and that's all I needed. And they get done work at 4 o'clock, so I couldn't even get up there till after 4, and I had studio stuff to do, so I did that till like 5:30. And I'm like, all right, I guess this is all the time I have to knock it out. What was that? That was Tuesday night. So yeah, like if this is gonna happen, it needs to happen now. So.
Well, I think we all appreciate that, and I know I do as a adult buying action figures as a paying customer, but I'm more appreciative. I've had friends all weekend here, I've been very busy. Lots of them have brought their kids, young kids, that have got, that's not a paying customer. They got to walk in and see that thing, and the wonder on their face, I hope, is the same wonder when my older sister read Smog to me, and I'm seeing this in The Hobbit as a 3-year-old going, I want a big dragon, how do I get a big, what is a dragon? What does that look like? It's not kids, they can Google it now, but we couldn't, right? And so, like, just like you, I have thought about having something like this, a large dragon, and that I can do whatever I want to do with forever and ever. And hopefully, I think, you know, especially the really cool setup, you walk in, you see kids seeing this. Right now, we've got another friend that's got little ones here. That they're just gonna, I think it's gonna be a meaningful thing, and hopefully get them into fantasy, whether it's Legions, whatever, into this world that we like, collecting, and you know, I think it's important. I go to so many conventions that I don't want to see the convention age as I age. You know, I want there to be others that get into it too, and I think you guys do a great part of having this here. I know is a big mess. I appreciate that too.
Well, you can't go to the zoo and see a dragon, and that's my favorite animal. So, if you want dragons to exist, this here and in here is how they exist. So when we say we want to make a dragon, this is as real as it gets.
And to that end, a highlight for me yesterday was a family was walking up to the dragon, and this little girl was like, "Is that real?" And so we had to convince her that she was on her best, that Beyithirr was on the best behavior, no biting allowed. And so she warmed up to it, but she was definitely like apprehensive, like getting behind Dad and stuff like that.
We told him if he moves, no
Yeah.
treats. No treats.
So I know CB's here too, or whoever can answer this question. It's interesting. It's over 10 years. I don't know how long has it been since the first Kickstarter launched. Is that? Oh, I don't know what the 10-year date means.
We're just over 10 years from that, because that was February 2015.
So 10 years later, a hosted, so crowdfund, but a hosted crowdfund that's entirely within. You know, I think but is there something about that for those of you that have been on this journey for however long you've been on it? That I think that's kind of cool to think. Oh, we went this and we needed a platform that would give us an audience, and now your audience is here. You can, you know, the economics of things are the economics of things, but having it where your audience is built in and you can do it on your own platform, I think there's a certain amount of that now that this is funded that has to be fulfilling. That you're not having to pay someone else to promote it necessarily. I think that's important.
For me, I was an original Kickstarter backer, so I was on the other side of the table when, 10 years ago, when that first Mythic Legions wave made history. To be now able to be a part of this and be able to bring this campaign out has been very, very rewarding, both personally and professionally. But yeah, be able to do it, 10 years ago, the company couldn't have done this on 4Horsemen and had the level of success. They needed a platform like Kickstarter. You know, we considered Kickstarter because it's gonna get us in front of a bigger audience, but the business reality is you gotta pay Kickstarter a percentage as well, which means the price of the dragon would have gone up. And every step of the way, we were like, how can we keep the price lower? How can we lower the price? You know, we wanted to see this out there just as badly as our fan base wanted to add it to their collection. So, you know, at the end of the day, there's so many things that we could have done differently. We evaluated all the options, made the best decision we possibly could. And the fact that this campaign funded in half the amount of time we had allotted. There's no incentive to back this early other than bragging rights and the fact that you're badass. The fact that you were like, this company, I appreciate what they're trying to do and I want to support it with my dollars early. That's the only reason to actually do it. So I think it is a testament to what we've actually been able to build and just how cool the community that surrounds this company is.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And the nature of everyone kind of feeling like they're a part of it, which truth be told, in some communities is completely false. It is a false sense. This community it is. Like you were sitting in here in the same room. We've all been shopping at the same tables the whole weekend.
A lot of familiar faces here.
Yeah.
I think that's, it makes me feel good as a member of the community, purely. Only that I know that I'll come to these shows and so many of these people that are in this room, I see basically when we're looking at action figures together. But I know what's going on in their lives and their families' lives and we care and I think that level of transparency, I'm always a believer in that. The best way to be with other people is just be open and transparent with the things you can be and be real. And I think that as a studio, we appreciate that. You can think about the Kickstarter versus whatever. It's what the Facebook group does. I've got the shirt on. You know, how many of us in this room have decided to not go to a bigger audience that might take a piece, but I might make more money. Instead, I'm going to sell it within the Facebook group and help somebody else out that may want this that I have that's hard to get that someone else wants. I think that's an important thing that I think really has grown, and it's amazing that we're in Atlanta. It feels like we're in Legion's Con, but we're in Atlanta. We're a long way from headquarters and so many familiar faces. That's for all of you all. I think that's an applause for everybody for making this happen on the other side of the house as well.
Yeah. It's been cool to see.
Yeah.
Being here 3 years in a row, it's been cool to see so many familiar faces. You know, there's a lot of people in this room that we see at multiple shows, that we see at Legion's Con. There's also plenty of faces in here that we only see in this, this region, but to see them year in and year out and have them come to the booth and support us and be able to continue those conversations, that's really, really rewarding.
Yeah. So we've got some things in front of us here. So we've got the larger, the epic wings.
Yep.
And we have the fire set. So I know when we watched the reveal stream and Eric held it up, it's the size of his torso. I'm not sure it's not also the size of my torso.
We can check.
That is a large. I mean, that's a
Joe's
big.
okay with this, Joe?
Joe's-
A little nervous, but he's okay.
Joe is watching.
I did ask Joe a couple days ago if he could just come to my house, and he said I'd have to wrestle him for it. And I actually went, I'm not sure I win that one. Wow. That is I think one of the challenges I wanted. That's good that we showed it because in the pictures, like if you're on the fence about the wings, but the wings have grown a ton this weekend. By the way,
Yeah.
It's pretty significant growth. I think in person, it's hard to see it in images. These are really cool and very different for the way that you could pose it. So maybe talk about that. So Eric sculpted both, and this is much more of about to fly, take off, epic set. What's the thought process behind that? Are you going to have it displayed like that with the wings in your home?
Yeah, I'll probably use the
Yeah.
epic wings.
The
Do
big
you want to
ones.
talk a little bit about the design of the wings? Or?
I tried to talk him out of it. I mean, it's so much extra stuff.
Extra's good.
Well,
George hates fun.
Yeah, like,
so-
the
It's
shirt
true.
says it all, right?
So some people have asked, and we considered, like, why is it the wing not articulated? Like, could you have done something where the wing opens and contracts, where, you know, this leathery part of the wing was like more of a fabric? And we talked about all of those
Or even
options.
like collapsing on itself, like
Yeah.
some of the other wings.
Like an overlap.
It's all design aesthetic and it's all Eric. Like he wants, Eric has a vision and a look that he wants to hit, and he's gonna do what he wants to do. He's gonna make it look as awesome as he wants it to look, and he's not gonna sacrifice his design for it just to get a wing that does something. He'd rather make two and make it like, you know, just have his vision out there. And, you know, we'll support whatever he wants to do with it, you know, as much as we can.
And that's exactly why the larger wing exists, because when we looked into the different options, you add those articulation points, which breaks up the sculptural detail. You know, there were concerns about what material do we use, is that really going to look right? You know, the rest of the dragon is so incredibly detailed. If we use this like fabric stuff here, you're definitely not gonna get this kind of look, all the veins and everything that are in it. So, like George was saying, Eric had a vision. I did an interview the other night where I actually said, you know, agree or disagree with some of our decisions. Hopefully people can at least appreciate the purity of vision. The fact that, you know, this is an artist who's creating something that's very much what he is trying to put out into the world. But it did like so many things with 4Horsemen Studios. If you have either option A or option B and we have to decide, Eric tends to go, well, let's do both. Let's add both.
That's why there's so many extra parts and so many of the packages, because we literally will be like, well, which one do you want to use? He'll go, we'll paint them both and we'll decide. And I go, all right, we're using both. Like, and inevitably he goes, I don't know, just put them both in. And it happens every time.
Yeah.
So that's why you guys get so many extra parts in there.
And so we have the fire breathing set, same thing, right? Sculpted another head, so here we go.
That's right. Yeah, this one's a little bit wider. It has a different expression in the eyes. These are a little more squinted. And you have the inner jaw of the skin where it's stretched out. And of course, you could do this with a hinged jaw, but it wouldn't have the same look. And he just wanted to have like a separate, more organic looking reaction, because even without it, you have this other tongue here, and this head will fit on the neck that comes with the dragon already, and this also comes with the other neck. It's a little buried at the moment, but even that is in a different position than what's currently on the base model. This is meant to be more of a like kind of forward, downward facing. I think even the scales along the top of the head are in a different position than the one that's currently on there to allow for that downward motion. Right now, this, for our printing purposes, this was made in 3 pieces, so there's a segment here and here, the tongue's connected. The factory may do a little bit different. We're working out some ideas. We had talked about doing it hollow, so if people want to, they can put some kind of light into it. That is not like the end-all official thing that will happen. It's something that we're looking into. That is not, we will not be putting a light into that. That's a whole other, yeah, that's a whole other thing that we can't get involved with this. But we know the community loves to customize these kind of things, and everybody's got great ideas. Want to try to help, you know, make it a little bit easier to make something like that happen. We'll see how it turns out.
Well, to build on what you just said, you've seen Eric do that open mouth expression on a number of figures recently. In the Reign of the Beast Wave, Windaji the Cackler, the fact that it's got, you know, kind of a grated mouth and then it's got the wide open. You know, Eric talks all the time about when a creature opens its mouth fully and growls or snarls, it's not just a hinged jaw. The whole facial structure changes. So when he's doing these alternate expressions, he really wants to capture that full kind of face. Now the other dragon, it does have a hinged jaw, so you can get some different looks, but if you really want to go with that fully wide open, this head is going to give you that full expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that set was always I mean, I was day one with all of it, but that, you know, just that even I'm looking at Joe hold it there, it's just so cool with that's what I see. I'm like, yep, that's the one. That was the one I saw when I was 3. I didn't know it, but Eric saw it and created it for me.
I've not been to your house, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Where in the hell are you putting this?
On top, the big Legion's display. There's some things that are gonna get into the tub of banishment. So. Well, actually, Natalie's here.
Where is
She's
he
the one.
putting it, where is his wife putting it?
Yeah, Natalie can
So
figure
we'll
that out.
probably move the couch that's in the collection room, maybe like remove that.
Wow.
And put a table in there in the middle, and kind of
So-
display it on that table.
Altar of the Dragon.
Because then you can walk up to it, and it's like also becomes like a placement.
I just need to point out that this is relationship goals.
All that side.
The question gets asked, where are we gonna put it, and the answer is, well, we'll move out the couch and build a display there for the dragon. It's like,
Yeah, some people are like, where am I gonna hide it?
I wish for you all, Natalie, I wish for that forever. So another thing I think is cool is you could have very easily just said, hey, we're making a dragon. What's the name of it? Dragon. Like, it's a big dragon, that's it. But it is, like, not only with the reveal and all the cool stuff and here it comes, but it also opened up kind of a new chapter, or seemingly a new chapter of the story and the lore, and, you know, so talk what you can about that. You know, a lot of folks said, will it have a saddle? I think everybody at this table thinks dragon riders are cool. That's not what this character is. It is a character.
yeah.
So
So,
let me take this one, Joe.
okay. When we knew we were gonna do a dragon, one of the first things that was important to me is answering the question, why have we not seen a dragon for the first 10 years and more? Now, the real answer is the company just, especially in those early years, wasn't ready, you know, financially, customer base wise, to do a project like this. That's the business reason, but I want there to be a lore reason. Because there's no way that we've talked about everything we've talked about in Mythos, and we're like, oh yeah, dragons exist, we just have never talked about them in a meaningful way. Nate paints them into literally every painting he does. There's a dragon in
Such a
everything.
tease.
But that was one of the first things, so when Eric and I sat down with one of our kind of lore sessions, we said, okay, why haven't we seen dragons? Where have they been? And it made a lot of sense, because we were having this discussion right as that first major arc, the Rise of the Dark Four, was ending, and we were starting to really talk about what the next arc is going to look like, and we said we want dragons to be an important part of it, but we don't want them to be the big bad. Like, that felt like too on the nose, that, oh, let's introduce these big dragons and they become the new. So we really wanted to have a more nuanced way of introducing them. We talked a little bit about this at Legion's Con, this idea, the 5 pillars of the first world, these like godlike level characters that have been part of Mythos, and the story that we told is kind of, there's things changing in Mythos, and you know, there's been weird weather patterns and creatures that have never been recorded that are suddenly being seen, and after this incredible earthquake shakes everything, the landscape looks a lot different, and suddenly there's this giant green beast flying above in the skies and flies over a big golden tower that's got the faces of 4 great beasts upon it. Anyone who knows the story knows that's the Tower of 4 Sides. And he looks down and he sees a land he doesn't recognize, and he sees people and creatures that he doesn't recognize, and they're all pointing up at him. Like, imagine if a dragon flew over us here in downtown Atlanta, we'd all be pointing up at it like, what is that? That's what's happening here in Mythos, and that's starting to set the story for not only how we're introducing this into the toy line, but how we're introducing this into the actual lore of Mythic Legions.
If a dragon flies over Atlanta, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm not paying bills, I'm not doing any of the social constructs, they're done. Now, one thing that I think has been, well, I know you won't confirm this, but I think it's important to point out, potentially incorrectly assumed is all 5 pillars are all 5 dragons. There's been a pillar that is a dragon, there are 4 other pillars. One of them could be Ralph the Halfling, could be one of the pillars. Absolutely, that's
Write
what
that down.
Right.
Off the halfling, okay?
Yeah, like I think it is, maybe they are, maybe they are not, but it isn't, oh, there's 5 dragons coming, this is you're gonna buy this every year. Certainly, expensive tooling is being made. It'd be silly to think that there might not be ways to use that in other ways, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the 5 pillars are verbatim. It's 5
Yeah.
more dragons, 4 more dragons.
At Legion's Con, I was reminded that I did say that all 5 pillars were dragons. The community so politely reminded me of that.
Ralph, it's left out of everything.
He's got a different marker somewhere else.
But I heard someone make a comment saying, they were a creator as well, they were an author, and they said, look, I can say anything I want, but until it's committed to the story, I reserve the right to change my mind. So, to kind of answer 2 parts of your question, yes, now that this tooling is going to live, we're gonna make this investment, we're going to obviously use it again. We're not just gonna repaint Beyithirr, we're not just gonna slap a new coat of paint on them as is and say, that's a new dragon. Like, there will be changes. There will be absolutely be changes to anything we do in the future. But as far as the pillars go, we still are discussing what those characters look like.
And as we all know, if you, the halfling, of course, we know the halflings are coming. I know they have to be coming. The thing to think beyond just like, are they repainted dragons? We know that this is a parts library across lines. So who's to say that in a different part of the 4Horsemen studio that you might see a dragon? There are certainly things in Figura or Cosmic or whatever that parts can be used for. That's just my speculation.
Space dragons confirmed. Thank you.
Say by me, just this side of the person,
Cyborg
not at the
dragon.
table.
Cyborg dragon.
The annex,
Cyborg dragon.
confirmed by the annex.
Purple space dragon, heard.
So most of
You
the
go
stuff
take
we
that,
talked
George.
about was at Legion's Con, but something that was not is Sir Benegar, the stretch goal, which is now unlocked. So let's talk about that, because as I understand it, I think you said that some of this Eric sculpted after Legion's Con.
Yeah.
And so, how did that come about? Because everybody raves over that figure. Obviously, it's a beautiful figure, but that was not even created yet when we saw the dragon.
So I'd like Joe to talk a little bit about the creation of this character, but I can just start that conversation with, you're right, when we decided that we had to go with a crowdfunding type format for this, immediately we were thinking, okay, well, what are stretch goals? Because that is such a part of crowdfunding campaigns. And right out of the gate, it was like, you might have even said, we need a Dragon Knight, like pretty much very, very early on. And then Eric was right, yeah,
Modest request.
that's what he was thinking.
Appreciate it.
But rather than just using the existing parts library in new ways, Eric wanted to create some new parts that were special for this. And that's what we get here with Sir Benegar's sigil shield, his helmet, and his pauldrons. But putting that together, he put together the design, and then it went over to both Joe and CJ to do all those amazing soft goods, which are, as of right now, probably 100 sales or less away from
Yep.
being unlocked. And then Joe to do the painting. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about, when you got your hands on these parts.
One of the goals we had with this was making sure that his color scheme really went along with this character in particular. We wanted to call out certain aspects of like different scale textures and where things line up, but not necessarily, like you'll see, you have some kind of golden orange in the wings, but on the pauldrons it's a different color, even though it exists on there. We wanted to be his own thing, but still a reflection of the dragon. Another thing that came up was we wanted to repeat Orn Steelhide's armor color. So this is a very near match to that intentionally. Because if you remember Orn Steelhide, he has those wings on the side of his helmet. It's kind of a callback to his design, and now kind of cross references with the dragon as well. So there's even more of this significance as to why Orn is wearing that kind of armor and he looks the way that he does. One thing I had recommended was the aggressive gauntlets, because they kind of reflect the larger scales of the dragon, just to kind of keep that look going. And of course, it's going to come with the Valiant Knight gauntlets as well, and the alternate pose hands, so you'll be able to use the lance like that and have expressive hands as well.
Again, which one do you wanna do? I don't know, both.
Essentially, yeah.
We have
there
Joe
it
to
is.
blame always for that.
Awesome.
Or them, whichever side.
That's
you're
kinky,
on.
right? When you add a little thing and then another thing gets added and another thing, that's a give a pig a pancake sandwich
Bigger pancake, that's it.
situation.
You can blame me for suggesting it, but you can always thank Eric for saying
For allowing it.
yes. Yes, that's what it comes down to. Thank Eric for saying yes. Another thing, I remember seeing the original renders for this figure, and this cape was just kind of like flat off the back, level along the bottom, and even the tabard, the tunic, it was just flat along there. I think it might have had some gold edging to it. Send over some parts to CJ, they get to looking at it, and they're like, oh, well, you know, we were thinking maybe it gets some scallops and kind of like have this representation of the fingers inside the cape. This is wired on each one of those the whole way, so you can really have this get pretty dramatic.
It's almost like a wing.
Exactly, yeah, it represents that. And then you have all this extra kind of cut-in design here that wasn't part of the original design, or just the CJ team was thinking, hey, wouldn't it be cool if it looked like that? And we were very much, yeah, that'd be flipping great. The sword was a little bit of a mistake. We had two that were printed out in solid gray, like most of our solid parts are. And I wasn't too happy with how the print came out. For whatever reason, the resin had gathered up in some areas, and it wasn't smooth, and it would have taken me some time to take a Dremel to it and like kind of like carve out the areas. Like, I don't really have time for it, so I asked Dan, who handles our printing now, I'm like, would you be able to print me out 2 more swords? He's like, they're like, all the printers are going, like the next thing I gotta put it on, like, I don't know, like, is it okay if it's in clear? I'm like, oh, well, actually, yeah, actually be pretty awesome if it was in clear. So this is an accident in a way, or a happy circumstance, because I'm like, all right, well, if it's in clear, let's see what we could do with that and have it make sense. So in my mind, then, you know, who knows what the story is, because I just see the designs ahead of time, not always like the whole background bio of the character. But I kind of think of it as like the still flame of Beyithirr, kind of like in the form of a sword. Not a laser sword, but you know, it's the fantasy aspect. Let's keep that rolling. So that's just another kind of neat. Yeah, it's a pretty neat aspect just to have in there. And of course, we have the sigil. Now, it's also going to come with that round boss to make this more of a basic looking shield. But like, I mean, this piece, it is so similar to the sculpt. I don't know if Eric just kind of like took the sculpt of the head and just kind of made it a little bit smaller, but like it's pretty darn close, and I just love it.
And it's worth pointing out that one thing we announced, because we are so well known for reusing the parts of our library,
Right.
because we wanted Benegar to be something special for this campaign, not only are we not releasing Benegar outside of this campaign, but we actually said that awesome new helmet that Eric sculpted for this is being retired after this campaign. It's only gonna be available, the pauldrons, same thing, after this campaign, those parts will be retired. So there is something very unique and special about this. It's super cool when you see people get a later version of a rare part and repaint. We have such a creative community that can repaint stuff. We don't want people to easily be able to recreate this, because we want there to remain that special uniqueness to everyone that's a part of this unique moment in time that is the Beyithirr crowdfunding, pre-order.
Right, and we're not quite on top of it yet. I think we need a little more than 100 orders to get these soft goods.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna make it.
Oh, without
honestly.
Without a
I think
doubt.
we're gonna make it, so I'm looking forward to that.
That's less than 100 away, which means we're, under 600 away from the next stretch goal, which is the Ashen Skeleton. Then it's the Ashen Skeleton upgrade kit. And then last week we were at a show in Michigan We announced that the 4,000 stretch goal is a new character, very much meant to pair with Sir Benegar, called Beyithirr's Fury. So 4,000 is definitely a ways away at this point. We've got 7 days to get there, but this community is absolutely amazing. And we've all seen crowdfunding campaigns that just get on fire in the final days, no pun intended. So I'm definitely very hopeful that we're gonna see that figure.
Yeah, I'm excited that tease came out last week, and so I think there's a chance we'll get there. You know, it's been displayed with the ability to buy for the first time here.
Yep.
So that's, I think we're gonna get there. Has everybody bought their dragon yet? There's somebody in here that probably hasn't. So we're good on time, we got 15 minutes left. Let's let folks here, because I've spoken too much, ask questions, and we will go.
Not fan.
Not
Wait,
bad.
I heard there was, that one in the back was up first.
Yeah.
Give yourself
I'll let
a
you.
Good.
So how much thought are you putting into the type of paint you're using on this? Like, Azazar has that UV reactive, like, tattoo rune things on them. Are you gonna do something like that for, like, the flame effects, or the eyes of the dragon, or a certain scale? So, like, if you're weird, like me carrying one around, and you flap it on, it, like, looks like stuff is glowing, or, like, you know, the kind of flame coming up the throat thing.
I think some of that UV reactive stuff ends up being a bit of a happy accident sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, we're not always like, oh, it's gotta look like this. They're trying to match the colors that we do, and some of the paints that they use end up providing that. So whenever we can add, you know, a coolness factor like that, we certainly look to do so. But there's also just happy accidents that get added along the way as well.
And Beyithirr was painted by Sherry. So,
Yes.
Yeah, I always love to make sure we recognize the artists that work. And Joe, you painted Benegar.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work, and I can't imagine painting. I can't imagine painting any of it, but
Not just one, two.
yeah, that's so I think everybody that looks at it, so I'll look at the detail and the paintwork and stuff. So she's done.
Well,
amazing.
two that match identically.
Yes. Very important.
Right.
Well, I think it's also, like, that display case is a testament to the teamwork of the studio, even just from the painting standpoint. Sherry painted Beyithirr, Joe painted Sir Benegar, Cameron painted the Burning Knight, right?
Oh wow.
And
Sherry did all the Ashen Skeletons.
based on the ones that the Dial guys did last
Right,
year.
yeah, so
to
Dan
throw
and
in
Bill,
that.
they were part of the display, and I don't think there was ever an intention upon having them
No, they
be
just
part of
thought
the
it was
stretch
cool to
goals.
put in the display.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, they're just, you know, prop pieces essentially. And then I got the very, very stressful task of posing all this awesome hand-painted work and having to take power tools to it to make it be able to stand, and every now and then breaking a piece or scuffing something up so bad I have to be like, hi Sherry, I know you're really busy, but this needs a little bit of a repaint, you know, because I want to respect the work that's put into it, and it makes somebody have to come back and do something over again because, you know, I got a little too comfortable handling things, you know. You know, I want to respect the work and make sure it stays as good looking as it can.
I think it's cool. It harkens back to what CB said at the beginning, where it was just a few of them doing all of this, and now the power of the full studio and
Yeah.
all the different creative minds that are pouring into a project, working as a team. I think that's really cool to just hear about all the different passion that goes into it, and that's how you end up with a product like this, because maybe the sculpting is coming out of one mind, but there's so much more.
The gentleman who's handling some of the shipping and almost all the customer service at this point, Adam, he built that rock formation down there. That's what he does for fun. And the 1/6 scale, like he'll make like, he made like a whole arcade for guys this big. It's insane the amount of talent, and a lot of us end up doing multiple jobs in the studio because we're still pretty small, but there's lots to do. So that it's pretty neat, just like how involved everybody can get with this.
Yeah. Other questions?
Okay.
Oh, thank you, George. So as a fan of the line, as you know, we sit back and we're constantly, I think I can speak for the room, in awe of what you guys put out. But it's really interesting, like when you talk about the happy accident, getting it in clear coat, and that's, how often do you guys sit back and like, wow, this person's so unbelievably talented? And you have those moments where you're just completely dumbstruck
Every day.
by the amount
Yeah,
of talent
it
you
doesn't
guys
go
are
away.
surrounded by. Like,
It's in front of, I've seen this for months and I can still look at it and I'm still, wow, it doesn't go away.
and the second part of my question, the wing adapters that we've had with our other figures, will they work with these to where we can like put them on gauntlets? for
Not
example?
without some significant modifications.
And you
Yeah,
gotta get a figure stand.
figure stand, and maybe a trip to Home Depot.
So you'll be putting out a video is what I'm hearing.
To go back to your
Something.
first question, anyone that knows, the makeup knows I don't live in New Jersey, so I'm not in the studio on a daily basis.
Surprise.
When I go
Somewhere
to
in
the
Maine.
studio, one of the first things I do when I come in is I drop my bag down, and I walk into every one of the painters' rooms to see what they're working on. Because it is like a kid in a candy store. I'm so excited. I've seen photos of it, Teaser Tuesdays.
Teaser
I
Tuesday.
always get to see some cool stuff, but being able to see it in person and, bouncing from Sherry's room to Joe and Cameron, and it's absolutely incredible. So every single day, every single time I see something new, there's that sense of awe that I'm so fortunate I get to work with such incredibly talented
I
people.
have the next question. Do you guys have a thing called Teaser Tuesdays that happen that I don't
That's
know
what I was
about?
thinking.
When did we get ice cream?
That one of
Is
the
this something
stretch
Joe has
goals.
been doing behind
Exactly.
my back at the studio?
Absolutely. Teaser Tuesday.
Did you just blow your cover? Because I didn't know about Teaser
I
Tuesday.
didn't know that was a cover thing.
Alright.
Teaser Tuesday.
That's
Because
a meeting about this.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't know about this Teaser Tuesday thing.
No, me either.
not everybody in the studio knows all the stuff that's happening at the same time. There's different departments, let's say. Because I'm usually at the studio desk, I'm cleaning up parts that are coming off the printer, or I'm getting a figure put together that either Sherry or Cameron or I have painted, like I get to build them when they're done. Because Jeremy's not with us all the time, I'll take a picture of something, typically on a Tuesday, because Monday can be a little hectic, kind of getting back into the swing of things, but I'll take a couple pictures on Tuesday, and I'll send them his way so he can really see like some of the stuff that's physically happening at the studio, which him and Eric, like they know the background of everything, but he doesn't always get to see like the physical end result. So that's my way of sharing with him, like, here's something that's going on.
Part of the job, dude.
Yeah.
Part of the job.
But
Just doing my job.
5,000
You get to see
units
everything.
sold.
George is the one who gets to tell me to put that stuff together. Hey, stop what you're doing, clean those parts, or you need to be doing this and that. So you know all of that. It's just my way
I
of
just didn't
sharing
know about
with him.
Teaser Tuesday.
That's just me trying to cover my ass.
5,000 units sold. Big Doug gets added to Teaser Tuesday thread. That's a stretch goal. I can go on a campaign. I can try to ask work.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
Other questions? We got a few more minutes.
Oh, wow.
George, you're in charge.
Oh, no, come on, oh, that's one.
Adonis, you. Oh, I can't see. Levi.
Yeah.
Okay, with your guys' decisions with like previous tales, like the Ninian infantry and the Torpiculi, where it's like a wire system, what made you guys decide to do the like fully articulated tail with Beyithirr?
It might actually come with a wire in it, so the end of it is a fully bendable tail.
Okay.
That's like the last, 12 inches or something?
About, yeah.
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 We're still trying to figure out what the best way to articulate the rest of it is. It's 17 points, but whether that's just gonna be a typical kind of ball and socket, we've been looking at putting a wire through it. So that's part of, like George was talking about, going to the factory. The level of engineering and partnership we have with them, they're not order takers where we just say do this and they do it. It is very, very collaborative to make the figures the best as possible. So all of that is on the table right now to get that final Beyithirr tail.
A lot of things too with like, you got a tail that's this thick, you can't just put a wire in it, it's not gonna, it doesn't matter how much the wire, how strong it is, you're not gonna be able to bend it, it's just not gonna stay.
Right.
So like, it all comes down to like production issues and what the materials, how you can work with them and what makes the most sense for each one.
And the tail down there, the only reason it has a wire is when I was putting them, it has like dumbbell pieces in between each. And for me to be able to kind of keep every top of the scales aligned, I needed something inside extra to kind of act as a support system to keep the part from fully being able to rotate and hold in place without having to use glue. So I ran it through like parallel to all that, and afterwards we're like, well, it would be neat if that was like a built-in support system as well. Excuse me, I got choked up. I need
It's okay, Joe. though.
Hoping you guys could, speak a little bit more on the engineering side, structurally, and I guess mechanically, any opportunities you had to innovate or come up with new ways. I imagine there had to be some prototype of this that just collapsed, right, or just couldn't stand.
A lot of the first prototypes, Eric would scale it down, so we were working with it much smaller. Like we have a little tiny version of him, just to make
About that long.
just to make sure that things would move and
Just
work
bring
the
that
way he
sometime.
wanted.
Baby.
Yeah, it would be nice.
So yeah, he starts off, he'll sculpt it, because it's all digital, you can, print it in any size you want. So we would print little pieces here and there, he would test them, see how they move, and then we would go into the full-size testing where he'd get like, okay, I have, these two parts of the leg, let me print them full scale, see what they move, how does it work? And he worked on it, slowly over time like that. So we did, the engineering was developed as he was working on it, and, as much as he could, we would do it small first, because, printing this thing giant each time it just would have taken too long, so.
I don't think he was done with the head yet, so that prototype, the small one, had a Rackagore's head.
Yeah, just a stand-in piece.
So even as pieces were coming off the printer and I would get to put it together, like, I still didn't even get the full picture of what it was going to become until, that big guy started to pop out. And that's like the second or third size head? Because we're trying to figure out like how big or small or whatever to make it proportionate.
I believe even some of the first prototyping we did, when we thought we had the right size, we were like, nah, it's too small. It's gotta go bigger, and we
Yeah.
ended up having to reprint the whole thing.
Yeah.
20% bigger. Yeah, it started out, and we were like, well, stood it next to a character afterwards. As we were getting the pieces, we were like, it's huge, and then we put it all together and stood it next to the figure and was like, oh, no, it's not anywhere near big enough.
It was the horse. We put it next to a horse, and it was like, it was huge, but it wasn't big enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there things in this process where the factory says, no, not costing no, but like, I don't know how to do that? We
That could come up, yeah.
Yeah.
There were points that Chris expected there was gonna be more rotocast in the Dragon than there's going to be. There's going to be some roto, but there were pieces that Chris imagined would be roto that the factory just flat out said no.
Yeah, they're pushing back hard on a lot of it to make sure that it's not gonna collapse. We need to make sure it's gonna hold its own weight, we need to make sure it's gonna function, if you move the arm, it's gotta stay where you move it, so there's a lot that we're working with their expertise to, like, we had an idea of what we wanted to do, and Chris has to, collaborate with them to figure out, what's actually gonna work.
Is 38 pounds, is that the shipping box or is that the product? Whatever that number is.
We're estimating that it's about 30 to 35 pounds,
Yeah.
box is about 35 pounds, Dragon's gonna be, the bulk of that, definitely upwards of 30 pounds. But again, that's kind of an estimate right now, because it doesn't exist as a final production model.
Yeah, when we announced that 4,000 unit sale extra figure, Chris was a little upset.
It just makes the
He's
box
like,
heavier.
that wasn't in the size that we determined.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen.
That wasn't in any of our estimates, guys. So he has to figure out how to make it work. CB, you have a question?
Yeah, talking about the engineering, I've seen a lot of people talking online that, it doesn't have much articulation.
Do they use that voice?
Can you?
Yeah.
Through Facebook. Can you guys talk about how much articulation is actually in the Dragon? Not just the tail, but like in the legs and in the wings and the head, the neck.
I mean, it's similar to the horse in a way. I mean, it has, every piece down the arms and legs is articulated where you would expect. I mean, we're not putting extra. There's no,
I
like,
just
there's
want
no
to
in
get
the
it
middle
on
of.
video record, so people.
There's nothing in the middle of bones that would be articulated. It's where bones end and where articulation happens. It's articulated.
Modern articulation confirmed?
It's 50 points, it's about 50 points, maybe a little bit more than 50 points of articulation. There's certainly some limitations. You know, some people have asked, oh, can you get it in like the curled pose around a treasure like Smog? No, it's the sculptural way that it's built. You're not going to be able to get it into that laying down flat pose. The body just won't do that. But if you're going to get this, pose it and put it on a shelf, you are going to have a lot of different options for how you want your pose to look in your display. Whether you want to go vanilla and put it on all fours, whether you want to have, you know, a custom display stand like Adam did down there, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for posing this creature.
And honestly, some of what we think is gonna be like available to do in the pose, we're not even gonna know until the piece comes back. So we can't
Right.
move this that much. Like we can't, like we physically can't do all the posing that we'll be able to do later to get it into that position because of the weight of certain pieces. Like things aren't gonna be the same when it's in production.
Right.
So I feel like you might be able to do some of these poses we don't think are gonna be possible once it's in plastic. I think some of these things will actually happen. I'm not saying you're gonna be able to curl it up and.
It's okay, I'm setting the bar low, so when that happens, they're gonna say, George told us so.
George said it would. Yeah,
But we as humans can curl up around it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that depends on your articulation.
That's true. So we're at time, we don't wanna take the room from the next group. I would encourage, there were still a few questions, just come talk to the guys at
Right down
the thing, they'll be down there in a few minutes. Thanks to everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.